Herzlich willkommen zu unserem Whisky Talk, zum Livestream vom Heimathafen. Heute zum Thema Stauning, dänischer Whisky. Klingt erstmal total plemplem und bescheuert. Wieso machen denn Dänen Whisky? Naja, wieso machen denn Deutsche Whisky? Völlig egal eigentlich. Und wir haben Gäste, also einen Gast eigentlich nur, weil wir sind ja immer eigentlich ich und der Vogel hier, der mit der Mütze heute,
ja.
Ne? Ist jetzt wohl Mode, denn der nächste, der dabei ist, der hat auch eine Mütze. Das ist Alex. Alex from Stauning. Herzlich willkommen. Welcome, Alex. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. I know you're very busy, so we are very lucky guys today.
No, of course I'm here. I'd love to be here. Thank you for inviting.
So, Alex, you are one of the founders of Stauning Distillery in Denmark. So, why whiskey in Denmark? So
well,
Scotland.
Well, that's a good question. Why whiskey in Germany?
That was the same question I was asking in German in the intro. That whiskey from Denmark sounds curious, sounds crazy, but whiskey from Germany too. So
yeah, I think now we have 2021, and I think you can find whiskey all over the world now. Even the smallest islands in the Pacific Ocean almost makes whiskey. So world whiskey is a big thing now. But in 2005, it certainly wasn't a big thing. There's a lot of things has happened during the last 15, 16 years. It's incredible.
That's true.
In 2005, actually at that point of time, none of us that founded Stauning Whiskey, the 9 friends, actually were big fans of whiskey.
And what did you do? What did you do before?
Well, I'm an engineer, construction engineer.
Okay.
And we're 4 construction engineers that's been studying together in Denmark. And then there's a helicopter pilot, and a doctor, and a chef, and a butcher, and a teacher. So 9 very different persons that's brought together to create a whiskey. And basically, as I said, no one of us really were big whiskey fans when we started. But I can tell you now, we are all very big whiskey fans. It's like I can't remember when I last had a gin and tonic or a vodka something. It's always something with whiskey I'd drink now.
But where came the idea from when you say none of you was a whiskey fan? So one must have had the idea and said, let's make whiskey.
Yes. So I think the idea was born without we actually knew it in 2003. So actually 2 years before we started Stauning Whiskey. 2002 or 2003, I can't remember now. We went to, most of us went to the first whiskey fair, whiskey show in Denmark. And we were studying at that point of time, a lot of us, and we came to this whiskey show where you've been to a lot, I imagine, you drink a lot of whiskey. Yeah. And when you get a bit drunk, that's typically the result of a visit like that. And in 2002, we were studying, and we saw this post about going to a whiskey trade show and drinking all the whiskey you could for, like 50 euro, something like that. And that's, when you're studying, that's cheap, that's low price drinking. So we went there and we tasted a lot of whiskey. The last whiskey we tasted was an Ardbeg from 1977. And at that point of time, it was actually possible to buy Ardbeg from 1977. It's very difficult today to find it. It's very expensive, I know.
Maybe a little bit expensive, yes.
Yeah. And drinking this smoky, it's not heavily peated. This 77 or the late 70s whiskeys from Ardbeg, but they're extremely complex, full, and not like Ardbeg today. So we had this one, and we were just like, wow. That's amazing. Can whiskey taste like this? Wow. So 2 years later, Martin Vesterby, the older brother of my studying friend Lasse, he was on a way to a summer house. And in the car, he heard this radio program about whiskey. And in the program, they said, it's easy to make whiskey, but it's difficult to make a good whiskey. And in this summer house, he met his family, and he said to them, guys, why don't we try to make the first Danish whiskey? He said it wasn't the first Stauning whiskey. The first one was made in 50 something. I can't remember, 58 or something like that. Yeah. But he didn't know, and they were like, "Why should we, start to make a whiskey? We know nothing about whiskey, Martin." And he was just, yeah, but couldn't it be fun? Why not? And Martin is kind of an entrepreneur type. He likes to start up businesses. He has a lot of new ideas and great ideas. Okay. And his brother Lasse and Jesper and their father Mogens and their mother's brother Henning were in the summer house, and they were like, let's create a list of friends that might be able to help us with this. Because we don't know anything about whiskey. Maybe somebody of our friends know more than us with the whiskey. So they made a list of, I think, 25 persons, and the first persons, everybody said yes when they called up these persons. Do we want to be part of making a whiskey distillery? Yes. Why not?
Sure.
Sure.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Cool. And then after like 10 people or something like that, they stopped calling more friends because everybody just said yes. So we were 14 people that met at Martin's house, and Martin and Jesper and Lasse had made a PowerPoint presentation on how to make whiskey. And when he was, I'm not lying when I'm saying it was. They went to Google and they wrote how to make whiskey, and you then get 10 million hits, on how to make whiskey.
Great.
They were like, that one. And then we started. That's basically how we started in 2005.
Okay, so the answers are there. You just have to Google it. How to get rich, how to get a whiskey distiller. So, how to find diamonds in nature. So I would Google that next. Okay, great start. So when I visited Denmark and I visited Stauning, I met Henning for maybe 15-20 minutes, and he told me a lot about the history, the first steps you did, and so the first idea, when I believe him, was to once produce whiskey, not to start a distillery. Is it true?
Yeah, just to make a whiskey. Yeah. Just can it be done to make a whiskey in Denmark? And of course,
so he told me you wanted to make 600 liters of whiskey. So that was the goal.
And I remember, we talked about this, and we said, how much should we produce each year? And we were like, 1 to 2 casks of whiskey, and we said for own consumption, what we will be able to drink per year. 1 to 2 casks.
1 or 2 casks. Great.
Maybe we can sell a bottle or give a bottle or 2 away to friends, something like that. So
Christmas presents.
Christmas presents, exactly. And maybe it shows that we actually maybe we didn't really believe, in the project. In the beginning, it's possible to make whiskey, but is it possible to make a good whiskey? That is the big question in this. And I would actually say, now I've been through this since 2005, it's incredibly easy to make a whiskey. It is. It's actually much more difficult to make a beer than making a whiskey. That's totally honest. But next step is making a good whiskey, and that is incredibly hard to do that part. Often you would try to copy something. You would try to make something similar to something. So Artbeck or Lagavulin or Springbank or whatever you have your personal favorite. And we wanted to make the Artbeck from 1977 that we had tasted, previously. So making a whiskey. Not making a distillery, but just making a whiskey.
Yeah. So when I look what you are doing now and what you're doing today, so I think when you ask someone who's very interested in whiskey or works in the business, and he gets a question, where should I look when I found a new distillery? They will probably not say Stauning, because you do everything on another way. So you do nothing like the great distilleries. You've chosen your so special own way for everything. It's totally crazy. So not the basic things. So how to produce the wash, but exactly. Everything else is completely different in your distillery.
Yeah, and then there's a good reason to that, because the first whiskey we made, or the first test we did, was in the father Mogens, his abattoir, the butchery. We had to find a place to do the first whiskey. You need a place that's approved for making food, and the butchery, abattoir, is a place where that's approved to make food. So we used everything that was in the butchery. So there was a freezer in there where you would hang the meat, and you could do that for floor malting. You could control the temperature. Then you would have the meat grinder. You could grind your grain. The kiln where you would smoke the meat, we would smoke the grain to make a peated whiskey. The mashing was done, by hand in tanks where you would use for meat and making, pate, stuff like that. So everything was from the abattoir, and our idea was to make a whiskey similar, not just to Ardbeg from 1977, but to the old style of Scotch whiskey. So not a modern whiskey that today you would see a clear wort, for example, after when you do the mashing. If you go 75 years back, you have an unclear wort. It's thick, it's cloudy, it's sticky. And today, and I've had a lot of master distillers from Scotland, a lot of old people, head of distilleries coming to see Stauning whiskey. And when they look at our washbacks, they're like, that's how it looked 200 years ago or 100 years ago in Scotland. So we're doing the old Scotch way of making whiskey, and that's different to how you do things today. Then we've tweaked a lot of things because we wanted it to work. For example, with rye whiskey, you can't use a normal mash tun or lauter tun to make rye whiskey because rye is so sticky. So we invented a special mash tun to do that, and it looks like a washing machine, something like that, to make it work. And when people look at it, and we've had a lot of people from Scotland and Ireland and India and US come to visit us. When they see this, they're like, that's stupid. That's just plain stupid. And when they then see the process, they're like, not bad. So actually some of the things we've done create different flavors. And today we don't want to make an Ardbeg from 1977. We want to make a Stauning whiskey, our own style of whiskey. Because so many today make copies of Irish, American, Scotch, Japanese are more like, a lot of Scotch whiskies in style. The best they can do is make the best Scotch whiskey somehow, if you ask me. Sometimes I can't differentiate a Japanese whiskey from a Scotch whiskey because they're so similar in style. We don't want to do that in Denmark. I know that's probably also like many distilleries in Germany. You have a really good alcohol culture, an old alcohol culture with a lot of fruit, spirits. You have different kinds of pot stills or column stills, and you make your own style of whiskey. And I really appreciate when you go to a country, you can taste it's the whiskey from that country or that area, or something like that. I really enjoy that more than just, I like Scotch, I like Japanese, don't get me wrong, but I like the idea of tasting something that's from, you can taste, this is not from Scotland, this is from somewhere else. We like that idea now. So that's what we're doing now.
So one of the nicest sentences on your homepage when I had a look on the last time, I don't know how it's in Danish or English on your page, but if you read it in German, it's we did not look for awards, but we did not mind receiving them. So it's one of the greatest sentences I found there, because you got a lot of awards for your whiskey and for your new make as well. So we had to drink a little bit. We have to we get the bridge to the first to the I think this one. I'm a bit curious. The awarded curious, and because we sent the tasting sets to some people who ordered it in our shop. With 4 whiskeys. So we had the Curious, we have the Madeira, the Mezcal finish from you, and we have the Rye, and we have the Smoke in a small tasting set for customers. So we have to drink it. I'm so sorry.
Of course we have.
So we need to taste it. So maybe you can tell a little bit about the Rye Spirit. Because I think it's a Rye Spirit, but it's not only made from rye.
No. So usually when you make a rye whiskey in the US, They do it in a very different way than how we do our own rye whiskey. Again, we do it differently in Stauning whiskey. This is 70% rye and 30% barley. This combination.
Okay, that's a match bill.
Yes, and it's been both the rye and the barley has been floor malted. So all the grain we make in Stauning whiskey, the barley and rye, is floor malted. We have a floor malting facility that is 2,500 square meters. And we have machines. We've invented special machines that can turn the grain on the floor, so we don't get our monkey shoulders in Stauning whiskey.
So if you like, I can show a small clip, or I have 2 or 3 clips. If they start here, just a second. Sorry, I thought I have clips, but it's shit. It's from my mobile, and it seems not working. I can only show some pictures. Where is the malting floor? Just a second, sorry. So I have it here. Okay, share screen. I hate this tool.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Online.
So here we go.
This
is a malting floor.
Yeah, this is one of 4 floors we have there.
Okay.
So we have 4 lanes like that, and on each floor we put 12.5 ton of grain, so either rye or barley. And the picture you see there, we have our grain turner, the machine that kind of is, instead of a rake, we have this machine that kind of runs over the floor and then goes like this and turns the grain. So we can do the germination directly on the floor, both the spraying and the final germination. So everything is done there, and then we take it up and put it in a box, and it moves it automatically into the kiln system we've invented ourselves also. It takes 5 to 6 days to do that. And in the kiln, and that's the great thing about this whiskey. It's not whiskey, the spirit. That's the kiln.
Lightly peated.
Sorry?
Lightly peated one.
Yeah, like peated one. Yeah. And you can see, I don't know if I can show you. Down there, we have a cross over whiskey. So because this is not a whiskey, it's not been aged, and it was a good friend of us, a bartender in Copenhagen, that wanted to. He said to us, "You can do everything yourself at a distillery. You can smoke with seaweed, you can smoke with wood, you can do heide, you can do torf, you can do a lot of different things. I find that fascinating. Why don't you try to make a new make I can use for cocktails? I need smoke, but I don't want the aging. I don't want the maturation, the taste of maturation. I want it without that." And we were like, a smoky rye, why not? Because if I have to drink the new make from the barley or the new make from the rye, I prefer the new make from the rye because it's so much more fruity, crisp, kind of licorice. We have apples, pears, citrus in it, and then you add the smoke to it. There we have the kiln with the heide, exactly. So we burn. It's called heide, right? This stuff.
Yes.
Heather, heide.
Yeah. So you put the hide into the kiln, and then you put torf on top of it. So peat on top of it.
Okay.
Because if you only to burn the heather, the hide, it will burn like in 30 seconds. It's gone because it's wood. But you kind of choke the fire with the peat, and then you get some much more complexity.
Okay.
Into the first version we did. Oh, sorry.
Nice idea.
Oh, thank you. The first we did was only with peat, not with peat and heather, but only with peat. And it's very different. The heide gives more complexity and sweetness, which we now really like in our smoke. The complexity just adds on to our product. It makes it more different again. So this one, we then made it, and we sent it for World Whisky Awards in London. I think the world's, for us, most important whiskey competition, because it's all the good brands that participate in this competition. It's a big brand, and we had won, I think, 3 or 4 awards on some of our other whiskies, and then we were not expecting any more awards. Then suddenly on the big screen, it showed world's best new make, Stauning Whiskey, and we were just like, what? Must be a mistake. That must be a mistake. But and what they said was actually that this is actually a new make you can drink. Often when you taste new make, it's not very tasty. A lot of people like spit it out, and it's a bit weird in the flavors. But this is very crisp. You have the smokiness that makes it even more interesting for a lot of peat heads out there. I know people that like smoked whiskey love this stuff.
Do you know the German spirit corn?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a kind of a new make, but it's only in Germany. You are not only allowed to produce a corn only in Germany, and there's a new movement which from young distillers who produce good corn. So it's very new to Germany to get good corn, and normally it's just to get drunk and not to enjoy. And the new corns are really good to enjoy. And we have some smoked corns too. So we have here in Bremen, there's Nork, is a German brand.
Yes, I know them. Yes.
Oh, okay. You know them.
They also do this licorice version.
Coffee and licorice. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And they produce a new corn, a double corn, which is called derbe, which means a little bit like very tasty, but in a angry way. And they use smoked barley and rye and as 3 kinds of grain for one corn. So maybe I can send you a bottle from that. And you can try it.
I would really love to taste.
You can share it with Stefan, who showed us a distillery.
Stefan is going to Bremen Bottle Market.
Yes.
Yes.
In 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. I can't remember. Yeah, exactly. So
it's a nice. He told me we will meet there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's going to be fun. Yeah.
So I can give him a bottle there.
Yeah. And Stefan, and now we're talking about the curious. Stefan is one of our oldest. He's been not oldest employees, but he's been in the distillery for the longest time. He's not old, Stefan. I'm sorry, Stefan. But he's very dedicated. So actually, this is a tattoo. This one. My co-founder Hans Martin, his sister she's a tattoo artist, and she did this as a tattoo. So this is a dog. It's a black dog, not a white dog, because white dog is the term in the US for a new make. But this is a smoky white dog, black dog. And it's been cut in pieces, so you have the head, the heart, and the tail of the dog, and you have smoke coming out of the dog. Stefan has this tattoo on his arm, so on his forearm down here, he got this tattoo. That's a dedicated co-worker we have there. Yeah. And later you will see another bottle, and he also has that tattoo on his other arm. So he will never leave Stauning Whiskey, this guy.
He's not able to go to another distillery. Okay, so we talked a lot. Let's drink. Yes. Let's get your personal tasting notes to your new make. So I'm very interested in it.
Yeah, and again, when you nose it, it's not very smoky. And our whiskeys are in the nose, not very smoky. You can when you add a drop of water, you will get a splash, some kind of the smoke coming up. But typically, you don't get a lot of smoke. And we're not supposed to create a lot of smoke. We wanted to balance this one. And again, this was only meant for cocktails, not for straight drinking. But now I know a lot of people do it for straight drinking. In Denmark, we put it in the freezer. Maybe you do it in Germany also, for Easter and Christmas.
Yeah, to get it cold, sure.
Yeah, to drink it for herring or fish, stuff like that. It's quite good for oysters also. To drink it with oysters, mussels and stuff like that. But so you don't have a lot of smoke in the nose. But the only thing you have in the nose is smoke. There's not much left. I know that's a bit of fruitness and sweetness, but not a lot. It's mostly the smoke that dominates the nose on this one.
Okay, so just information for Tim was asking. He was a little bit late. He said, "Sorry, I'm late. What kind of whiskey is in the glass?" So it's no whiskey. It's a new make. We start with a curious. Tim, wir fangen mit dem. Siehst du ja wahrscheinlich schon mit dem klaren an. So.
Yeah. Genau, der New Make, um einfach die Reise etwas besser zu verstehen, von wo aus wir anfangen.
Okay. And then when you then taste it, and this is 43% ABV, so it's not very strong. It's the lowest ABV we do at Stauning Whiskey. We have some products we're going to taste later on that are 46, I think, as I remember, and there's one on 48, and 47 also, and that's quite low for whiskeys from Stauning Whiskey. Normally we would be over 50. And I think for a long time we've done under 50, but I think in the future you'll probably see us going up a bit again to over 50% ABV. You know,
when I started talking today with Daniel, we talked about the ABV and about the first one, the second one said, "Oh, it's 43 ABV." So I think for Stauning it's nearly alcohol free.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It's for the pregnant.
We're releasing very soon through our distributor, Kirsch. We're releasing 6. No, it's more. No, 6 single casks in Germany.
Oh,
only in Germany. Called Artist Series. You'll see very soon, and they are all, I think, 57, something like that, up there. So much higher in ABV, because I prefer it. You can always add water to the whiskey. It's just really difficult to take it out of the whiskey, you know. So
most of the people think it's very, very special water that you add. So
yeah. But when you taste it, cheers.
Cheers.
You get this kind of, again, delicate smoke. It's more like a Highland kind of smoke, not like the Islay kind of smoke. And you got this fruitiness, again, as I also recognize from a lot of German distilleries. The pear, apple, citrus. Citrus is very predominant in our alcohol. In all our whiskeys, you'll recognize citrus, the citrus peel in it. Then you have a little of this, and this is a bad word, but in the whiskey world, you can say a lot of bad things on the whiskey. We all know what it means. It's not necessarily bad, but shoe polish. You have a bit of shoe polish in this. You know.
Yeah, always when I lick on my shoe polish, I taste the same.
Exactly. But you know what I mean. You know.
Yes.
When people are like, asphalt and tar and stuff like that.
Oh, awesome.
Okay.
I like it. So what's wrong with you?
Yeah, what's wrong with you? Boats and stuff like that. Then kind of I would it's tobacco, or some of my colleagues says ashtray.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ashtray sounds really bad, but in the world of whiskey, it's not that bad. We all get that, the smokiness, and we love us that like smoky whiskeys, like ashtray and tobacco and stuff like cigar and stuff like that.
It's true. So it's very mild. So
yes.
Normally, when you drink a whiskey, you expect some sharp notes, some heavy notes, and this one is extremely mild, so you can drink it in a very easy way.
Easy way, yeah. And that's actually something we hear often with our whiskeys. When we had a single cask when we opened the distillery some years ago, it was 61% ABV, and we had people guessing on the ABV on this one. Everybody was down at 40, 42, 45% ABV, but it was a 61% whiskey. So often we hear that it seems lower in alcohol than it actually is. I think that's probably due to the way we produce, of course, this old school way of distilling. And often when you taste some of these old whiskeys from Ardbeg or Highland Park or Macallan or stuff like that, they also seem lower in the ABV than they actually is. And it's not because they're older. It's not because it's a 25-year-old. It could be a 12-year-old or a 10-year-old, but it seems lower in ABV. And I think that's due to open fire. We have 24 open fired stills. That creates a lot of fruitiness.
We have to talk about that.
Later on.
So I have to answer one question of Finn, because Finn is the second time that he's asking, is it possible to scale up the volume? But I think it's I don't know how, Tim. Also Finn, sorry, ich weiß nicht, wie ich die Lautstärke höher stellen kann. Just maybe Alex, do you have a possibility to maybe speak louder or or use it? Maybe I don't know what he means.
Ich höre es extrem. Ich höre es sehr laut. Also.
Okay. Ich höre es auch ganz normal.
Ja.
Deswegen, Finn, vielleicht liegt es an dir. So maybe it's up to Finn to change anything. I don't know. But I understand everything normal and have not the full volume here. So
Okay. Okay, I'll do my best.
But I wanted to answer Finn because he was asking the second time. So sorry.
I think the new make harmonizes well. That's great.
Yes, it's balanced well, and and who can say that on a new make? It's balanced well. It's not meant, and that's the fun thing about a whiskey, because when you distill and when you create whiskeys compared to gin or vodka, you actually bring in the mistakes of the alcohol into the new make, because that creates flavors later on. You would hate to have flavors like this in a gin or in a vodka, because it's not good then. So we actually take some of the mistakes or some of the wrong things if you compare to vodka, because it's distilled at a much higher ABV. We bring that into the whiskey. So often you get really strange notes in a new make. But I think we've covered that quite well with this one. So.
Yeah. All right. So I wanted to have a look at my pictures here. Is there anything? Just a second. You said you have 24 stills. So I visited Stauning last week, and it's really true. When I saw the first photos from your distillery, I said, did they use mirrors, or is it a different angel? Because I did not see the size of the stills. I said, well, what's happening there? They have been very, very small, and now they have 24 stills. Are they totally crazy? So that must be 20 million liters of alcohol in a year. And then I heard, okay, they are not that big. So I have a picture where I am next to one of your stills, so I can show how big or how
so you can see the size.
Just a second. I'm a very old man when I do this.
Very, very old. Very, very old.
Whoa.
Yes, exactly.
And very
200 liters?
Little.
2,000.
2,000. So
2,000.
I am nearly 2,000 liters. So
yeah, you are nearly 2,000 liters.
So here is 1,000. Okay, also von diesen Brennblasen haben die 24 Stück da stehen.
Okay.
Das ist schon krass. So you have 24 of that. 16 are in 4 groups.
Yes.
And then you have
wash stills. Yeah.
Wash stills.
Yeah. So the first distillation is the wash, the wash stills that takes care of that. You're distilling the wash again. And second distillation, our spirit stills, we have 8 of them, all same size, made by Abercrombie in Scotland. And actually, it was kind of a challenge to make these, because our old stills are from Hoga stills in Portugal.
Yeah.
We had a 1,000-liter wash and a 600-liter spirit still. Or we had 3,000 liters and 2 600-liter stills in the old distillery. And we then asked this guy in Portugal if he could make 24 2,000-liter stills. And he almost fainted, and he was just like, "That's not gonna happen. You will receive the stills in 10 years, something like that." Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's the spirit still. The old spirit still.
So was a spirit still? Okay.
And then we were in problems. What do we do now? So we contacted Abercrombie, and Abercrombie is the oldest manufacturer of pot stills in the world. Still functioning. I actually asked the managing director how old they are, and he said, "Well, when Marie Antoinette got her head cut off, we were making pot stills." So it's pretty old.
It's old.
Yeah. It's old. Yeah. And they said to us, "We can't make them." And we are like, "What? But you're the oldest, and you're one of the Forsyths and Abercrombie is, I think, the 2 best in the world." And he said, "Yeah, but nobody makes direct heated stills, so open fired stills, as you did 50 years ago. That's a lost art. You do it with steam, or you do it with electricity, but you don't do it with fire. Only a few places in the world does it with fire now. So we can't make them. And then we really had problems. So we were actually quite afraid that this project wouldn't happen. Then the managing director, Michael Simpson, his name is, he called us up again a week later and said, "We'll give it a go." And we were like, "Whoa, wow, why?" He said, we contacted the retired people from Abercrombie, the old guys, so 80, 70, 80 years old guys. We got them back to the office, and they told us how you did, 50, 60, 70 years ago. So they were part of making the stills with their head ideas and the knowledge of the stills we have today. And I think that makes the story even better, that they actually took old knowledge and brought it into 17, 18 when we made them. And after they had fitted them in our distillery, the young guys that fitted in the stills, they said, "This is the best job we've ever had in Abercrombie, in our lifetime, because this is so different and so much fun to do. Will it work? Won't it work? And it did work, luckily." So really nice. Yeah.
So Stefan told me the hole in the middle on the ground is not in the middle, so you had they had to skip it a little bit to get it empty.
Yes, they're angled slightly to the side, and you could probably see that in the pictures. And it's a mistake from Abercrombie. We said to them when they designed this, we said to them, "Please remember to take the outlet when you flush the rest of when we empty the stills after distilling. Please remember to put the outlet under, so we don't have 20 liters or 30 liters sitting in the bottom of the pot still when we empty them." And they forgot to do that, so they put it on the side. That means to get all the liquid out, we could fix that, but it was just easier to tilt the stills a little bit so it would run out.
It must be the same crafter that did my bathroom at home. The same problem here in my shower. Okay. So maybe let's continue with the next dram for our followers here. What will be best now, the rye or the mezcal finish?
I think mezcal.
We were wondering.
Should we go for the bastard?
The bastard? Okay. Yes. So same opinion here.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, also wir machen weiter mit dem Bastard. Mit dem Bastard.
Ich glaube, auf den kleinen steht noch drauf dann Mezcal Finish Batch 1.
Genau, Mezcal Finish ist das in dem Fall jetzt hier. Ja. Also das ist so eine, hier auf der großen Flasche steht Mezcal Cask Finish oben drauf. Rye Whiskey, bottled 2021, Batch 1, Batch number 1. And yeah, it's a very special finish, I think. But it's a very special series.
Yeah. So this is again like the first one. Curious, it's a different design to our normal bottles. These are part of what we call our research series. This is where we play and do different things. And
so you learn, we pay.
We learn, you pay, exactly. And actually, if you go to the distillery on a distillery tour, we actually all the tests we do at the distillery we sell in the distillery shop. So we do many different tests, on different casks, smoke, all that. And they're not, actually, we don't sell them in public officially. We only sell them in a distillery shop. So there might be like 30 bottles of something, or 50, or 100, or 600, or 2,000.
You like to experiment.
Yeah. And this one turned out pretty well. So it's the name Bastard is because rye whiskey and mezcal somehow doesn't work together, doesn't fit together. Why mezcal? Why rye whiskey? But during all these experiments, we found out when we age rye or single malt, the rye whiskey absorbs the flavors of the casks much better than single malt.
Okay.
And this is pretty weird, actually. And we have a person looking into that at the moment. Why that is a laboratory. when you put rye whiskey in, for example, a mezcal cask, after 1 week, 2 weeks, you can taste the cask, the profile of the cask. It takes up to 6 months before you can taste it in a single malt, the cask. 4 months, 6 months, something like that. Some are faster, of course, if it's a really powerful wine or something like that to spin it into the cask. So it's much more easy and fun to us to play around with the rye. So the research series so far have been only 3 rye whiskies. So the Curious, the Bastard, and the third one we have is called El Clásico. And the Clásico is rye aged in vermouth, the vermouth cask, the Spanish vermouth cask. And vermouth and mezcal, we think fits very well to our rye whiskey. So that's simply just the simple and basic story. It was an experiment we really liked. And what it does to the rye or normal rye is it gives it a bit more, it's a bit more dry. It got some kind of umami over it. It's not smoky. You should imagine the mezcal, the smoky agave spirit, that it would be smoky in the rye, but you don't get smoke into the rye. You get some kind of umami flavors, licorice especially also, and that we found really, really fun and interesting. It's 46.3 ABV.
Yes.
So again, a bit high, but not super high in ABV.
It's perfect. For me, 46 it's perfect.
So we get some of this spiciness. Yeah, cheers. Spiciness from the rye whiskey you usually get, but it's not as dry and spicy than the American type of rye whiskeys. This is much more like kind of a single malt whiskey in style.
The mash bill drink. The mash bill's 70% rye too.
Yes. Also 70% rye, 30% barley.
Okay.
Yeah. Next year, we have some batches that will be just a bit over 50% rye and 48% barley. We've done a lot of tests in the new distillery where we changed the the volume of the different types of grain. That's also very interesting, and you can taste that in the product. If you do a blind tasting, you won't recognize it. But if you know what it is,
but you changed it completely for the next bottles, for the next casks. So everything that comes from the new distillery is in a different way of.
Yes. And it was actually because when you change a pot still, and you've probably heard these stories from Scotland. If there's a dent in the pot still, the old one, when you want to replace it, you make a dent in the new one because it has, and it's a good story, but shape, size. How long the line arm, the swan neck, all that affects the flavors of the whiskey. So even we tried to make a copy of the old pot stills, but there will still be some differences to the old pot stills. So to balance that up and create a profile similar to the old distillery, we had to change some things in the distillery, in the mash bill, for example. Temperatures, stuff like that, cut points, temperatures in the condenser. There's small changes here and there to create a product much similar to what we did in the old distillery.
Okay.
But this one is, again, a bit, I say a bit like dusty somehow, a bit more American in style than a normal rye.
That's true.
You get, you get some of this, lemon peel. You get
a little bit orange.
Exactly, orange notes.
A little bit.
A pepper, licorice again, as you have in.
Was one of the greatest things I tasted with Stefan was the whiskey aged or finished in a orange liquor casks.
Yes, that is nice.
So awesome.
Yes, it was really nice.
It's a whiskey for my girlfriend, but I like it too.
It's really nice. We've done it with heather smoked and the rye whiskey also, and they're very different in style. But we also did a maple syrup finish.
Yeah, I tried that. I tried that
one. I really like that one also. Yeah. But so but we don't do. It's not 100% of our production, of course. That is experiments like that. It's just a few thousand bottles every year. That is experiments like this. So research, and then maybe in 5 years, more and more will come, and maybe it will be part of our normal rye, we will just add 1 or 2 casks to the normal rye because we think it fits to a certain profile. So we are only from 2005. We don't have 200 years of history to build on. So we're always evolving.
But what Stefan told me is that when you mature the rye whiskey, so like you do it, that it is not made to get very old, because there's not that much happening after 4 or 5 or 6 years. So it's ready. So it won't get better after the time. Is it?
Not completely true. Well, he's right, but it changes profile. So the longer we age it, the more we will be like other whiskies.
Okay.
I think we've discovered that our rye is the best, we think, around 5, 6 years, 7 years in age. So we will also create older whiskies in the future. But as we are young and we are always sold out, we in 30th of September, I sold all we had for 2021. So the stuff we're selling now for the last 3 months of the year, that's actually whiskey from 22. We're going to sell in 22 according to the plan. I had to pull that back to 2021. That's the cask again for Germany. They're ready. They're good. It's not because they are too young. We would prefer that they were a bit older. That we aged them a year more. But as we are sold out, we bring it back. We don't sit on our hands and don't sell anything just because we're sold out. We have to create more whiskies.
Okay, so let's have a look on this picture here. So when you say you're sold out, I have a picture from the warehouse. So he said he's sold out, so he's very rich now. He sold all these barrels of whiskey, and maybe but he has to share it with some other people, with his colleagues.
Yeah. We need to do
but let's talk about how rich you are, because you get a lot of money from a big company, I heard.
Yes.
So you must be a very rich guy now. You sold a distillery for I don't know, 100 million euro. No, it was not euro. It was Danish crowns.
Danish crowns, exactly. Yeah.
So it's, what is it? 13 million euro?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, all in all. Yeah.
And you are still the majority.
Yes. We in 2014 we were approached by a company that's called Distilled Ventures. They work together with Diageo. And they said to us that we've been searching the world for fantastic brands, and we found that you're probably the most interesting in 2014. We were like, what are you talking about? We didn't know, we like our products, but we didn't know that we were interesting like that. 2 weeks before this, we actually agreed that we needed to grow in size because we couldn't produce enough whiskey in Stauning. So we needed to grow maybe to triple size than we were at that point of time. So we were like, interesting. We can either go to a bank and get some money, or we can sell some shares to the public. And then you get a lot of people that want to do a lot of things with your flavor and your profile in your distillery. We don't want that. You can get a rich guy, and there were a couple of rich guys in Denmark that offered us money to invest in the distillery. But you probably know that the term cash is king. So the guy with the cash is typically the king. This is the guy that decides. Yeah. We didn't want somebody special dude coming in wanting to change everything, because this was our baby. So when they said to us they would like to invest in us, we said, cool, very cool, but we would like to have the majority of the stocks, because we want to decide. You can give us all the money you want, but in the daily construction and working with the Stauning whiskey, we decide. We don't want you to decide. And it took, to be honest, 1.5 years, because you can imagine when you say that to Diageo, they're like, that's how it works. So we made an agreement. So we made an agreement. So in time, they will of course get money out of whiskey, but the first many years, this is just investing. Investing. It's expensive to make whiskey and put it in stock. So they actually invested in us in 2015, December 15, and then it was not that big a number as you just mentioned. First, we wanted to do a very simple distillery. not a very big distillery. Very simple one, not design, just very simple, 2 buildings, steel, boom, make whiskey. And then one of my good friends, Morten, he's an architect, and he said to me, why don't we design a really cool distillery? And I said, no, Morten, my wife is an architect, every time I bring in architects, it gets expensive. We don't want that. And he was just like, no, we are a bit clever. And I'm a construction engineer. Engineers and architects doesn't go well together. So he said, let me just, he took out a napkin and kind of made the distillery you see on the picture. He did that on a napkin. He said, a still house, a floor malting, a kiln, mashing, fermentation, distillery. So boom, 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 some buildings. We sat there, looked, and that napkin was like, not bad. Maybe that's a good idea. So he made some 3D images, and it's similar to fishing huts and farming buildings at the West Coast. And the black is actually to kind of show the color inside of a whiskey barrel or cask. It's black. Okay. You char, you burn a cask on the inside. So the distillery inside, the still house is black, and the buildings are black outside. And on specific areas on the building, we actually have burned wood on the facade to show people what it looks inside a whiskey cask. Because that's probably the question we get asked the most often. What brings the color to a whiskey? Well, it's the burnt wood. You char the wood. The natural sugar in the wood will turn into caramel when you burn it. That's what gives the color to whiskey. So that's the reason why we did that. And then there's a road you can see in front of the distillery. We have especially all the German tourists driving on that road. Yeah. And we said, let's show them the distillery, the pot stills, the floor malting, the fermentation, the mashing, the casks, everything. So if you drive by the distillery, you will see whiskey production in 5 seconds. Boom, then you've seen it. You can see everything in the production from the road. You can park your car, you can go over, and you can take a look inside the distillery. There's no fence, there's no nothing. That's very important for us to be open.
The fast tour is outside on the road from the car.
That's extremely fast.
Okay, got it. Let's go to the next station.
In there. Yeah, exactly. So
what's next? Can we go to Legoland?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We showed the design.
So when I visited your distillery, we had the luck to get a private tour with Stefan. And then we saw the German tour walking next to us. I think it was 50 or 60 people. So it was
40.
How much?
Probably 40 people. We have a maximum of 40. Yeah.
So felt like 100. But very, very, it's a good tour with a lot of information. But so you had 3 tours on that day. So maybe you have 3 tours every day. I don't know. Yes. So it's a lot of visitors. So very, very great. But when we saw the picture, the old buildings is where you started producing the whiskey in a professional way. And then you moved the distillery to the big buildings. So now the old buildings are your distillery shop and the center for tastings and tours. So that's
a museum. We have our old pot stills there, and the old stuff like that. Yeah, we have. I think if we don't take Corona into account, the normal year would be 2019. We had about 20,000 guests at the Stauning Whiskey, and that was the first year open after we did the new distillery. So the first full year. And we actually expected 2021 to be around 30,000 visitors because it's going like this at the moment. But then Corona came. About half of these guests are from Germany. It's quite incredible. And I have to say, we really, really like Germans because they buy more in our whiskey shop, much more than the Danes. So an average German will pay around 30% more per person than the Danes. So we love. When the borders were closed down to Germany, we were just like, nah. So please come to Denmark.
For all the Germans that want to go to you, they can buy it here in my shop. We're not that expensive like Stauning.
Of course, that's always start in your shop. No, so it's been great with the new distillery design, and Yasio said, that's just amazing. It's fantastic. It's very unique. So let's put some more money on the table and make you build this very special distillery. And I think what we hear very often is people say, now I understand whiskey, going to our distillery, because you see everything, you touch everything, you smell everything. We actually when we go to the spirit safe on a guided tour, we take samples from the spirit safe, directly from the spirit safe, and serves it to the guest. I don't think you can do that in Germany or in Scotland or places like that. It's illegal. The customs will get very angry at you, but we're actually allowed to do that in Denmark. So the guests really feel and see how whiskey is done, and I think we are very happy that we have the possibility to do that, to show them that.
Ja, so I can recommend that. So, also alle, die zu Hause sitzen und nach Dänemark fahren in den nächsten Urlaub, fahrt dahin. Es ist großartig, es ist eine wundervolle Tour mit so viel Leidenschaft. Die sprechen da sehr, sehr gutes Deutsch. Also ich wurde von jedem, der da war, auf Deutsch angesprochen. So, es war wirklich eine total tolles Erlebnis und du lernst wirklich eine Menge. Nicht so viele vielleicht in Schottland, wenn du da irgendwie die Hälfte nicht verstehst, weil die sprechen irgendwie seltsamen Dialekt. Gibt es auch deutsche Touren, aber Stauning ist wirklich richtig competent. So what I say, your tours are very competent. The guides, because everyone who's doing tours in your distillery has really worked in this distillery, so they know what they are talking about. They are not students from anywhere.
No, we really focus on having tour guides that knows what they're talking about. And often Lasse, one of the co-founders, and me, or the production, takes tours with the tour guides and talk about process, production, how things are done. If we do changes in production, we need to tell them these changes. They need to completely understand how whiskey is made, because we get a lot of great questions for whiskey people. So they need to be able to answer them, of course.
We have to continue.
Yeah, of course.
Stauning Rye.
Stauning Rye, yes. Like this.
Stauning Rye ist der nächste, Leute, zu Hause. Ne? Jetzt gibt's den Rye. Ich stelle die Flasche gleich hier wieder hin. Und
die Flasche ist super.
Genau. I love your new design, because I started selling Stauning in the small old bottles when you started with a 0.5 liters. They have been a little bit expensive for Germany at that time. Just a little bit. So when we started selling Stauning, so Kirsch presented this to us and said, it's a very, very good whiskey. You have to sell it. You have to use it in your shop. I said, yeah, but it's a little bit expensive, because a lot of people come in my shop and are not buying whiskey for themselves, but as a present. So maybe for the husband. And they come in and say, hi, my husband loves Scotch. What do you have? And when I say I have Danish whiskey for the double price, but it's even half that old, so they say, what's wrong with you? So what are we talking about? So, but now I think the since you have bigger bottles, the prices get down.
Yeah,
crazy. So I get more for even better price, and I can explain why it's that expensive now. And the bottle looks that great, that wonderful. It's one of the beautiful whiskey bottles in the last years.
Yes, thank you very much. And when you look at it, the design, it took a long time to design this, but this is actually the illustration you have on the bottle. That's actually the production and the story about Stauning whiskey printed on the bottle. So you can find the 9 founders, the chef, the helicopter pilot, the butcher. You'll find them. You'll see the floor malting, the direct heated stills. So there's small stories all over the bottle where you really can dive in and find special things. And we found, I travel a lot to other countries looking to find retailers, distributors, stuff like that. And every time I'm in an airport, I look at whiskey, of course.
Yeah, I'm too.
yeah. Why not? And I never see the story or the production of the distillery on the bottles or the boxes. And I really wondered why that is. And we could probably do a box, and we are actually designing a box now, because we know that's one of the problems, that we don't have a box, when you use it for gifting. But we really wanted to show the bottle, show the customers this exceptional, I think, good-looking illustration that tells a lot of stories. And for a lot of people, it's an extra good thing, when they have friends all over for whiskey. They can show them the small stories. And, this is the butcher standing there. His name is Ramones. He did floor malting and blah blah blah. All those stories. But they can talk about things just by looking at the bottle. They don't have to go to website or anything like that.
You put this in a box or a tube. Every bottle would look like a special edition.
Yeah.
Because when this comes out of a box,
yes,
people go crazy.
Let's hope that. So the rye.
The rye. Let's talk about the rye.
Yeah.
48. 48.
The rye is this from a cask. Maybe
without smoke. Without the smoke.
Without smoke. Okay. Without smoke.
So there's no smoke in this one. This is our, this is our basic product. So the one we sell the most of. And the reason why we really highlight this one is because, like in Germany, Roggen rye has for centuries been very important for the culture, the people. If you open the lunch boxes of the school kids, you will see rye bread in the lunch boxes. It's not white bread or biscuits and stuff like that. It's rye bread, black bread, Schwarzbrot, things like that. So why should we make barley or wheat when we are a country of rye? And 200, 300 years ago, Germans, people from Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, they took a boat, they traveled to the US, and they had rye in their pockets. And they spread it on the ground, and then they had rye bread, because you get full of rye bread. It's easy to grow in bad soil. So that's why you started with the rye. And actually, the first whiskeys before bourbon was rye, historically, when you go back in American whiskey production. But a lot of people don't like rye because it's very spicy, peppery, strong flavors. Not the Canadian rye, but mainly the American types of rye. So we wanted to create a kind of a sweet, easy drinking rye. You can drink neat. Doing that by double distillation of Scottish production methods. This is 48% ABV. Again, you can add some water to it to get the alcohol down. My favorite whiskey is the rye cask strength. It's great, just great. I love it. It's if I were to choose anything, it would be the rye, 61% ABV, something like that. Full of flavors, explosion in your mouth, but not like some of these Americans.
Kirschenport.
Hi, Kirsch.
Hi.
Not like some of these American rye whiskey that really hurt in your mouth, your cheeks, because it's so spicy and strong. So a lot of women also now, and non-whiskey drinkers, people that comes from rum, when they taste that rye, they're like, so maybe whiskey is not that bad, Anyway, so we bring some new people to the whiskey world, and we didn't do that in intent. This was just by accident, of course.
Yeah.
So in more areas, I think this is a good product for us. It's again, a mash bill, 70% rye, 30% barley, virgin virgin oak, heavily charred casks, char level 4 casks out of 5. So almost, it is in between. It's as you know, alligator level. So really, really hard burned. This one is getting citrus. You get like freshly baked rye. In here, if you have been baking rye bread, you will recognize this freshly baked rye smell and taste. You have again the apples, the fruitiness, pear in this, and of course wood.
And there's a fruity aftertaste.
Yes, and I can't really. It's a kind of apricot or sweet fruits, something like that.
Yes,
that's in here.
Yeah. And what do you say to the other two whiskeys? This Curious and the Bastard was always dusty, and I think this one is the most dusty I tried now. So it's like when you bite in the bread.
Yes.
But in the double baked bread. So
I think maybe if we would take the Bastard after this, my impression is that Bastard is much more dry, I think. But again, palate
Okay.
different. Yeah. And then
I have a little bit of bastard left.
you have the kind of the vanilla from the cask, the virgin oak. You have this woody vanilla flavors, the caramel to it. But again, Sasha, we're different in flavors, so we perceive different things. Of course, maybe you detect more dryness in your palate. And
Yeah, that's it. I think it's more from the bread.
Yeah, and
Knäckebrot.
And every time,
yeah.
every time it's a natural color and non-chill filtered. Okay. Yes.
Non-chill filtered and natural color, of course. And you would see when we go to our smoke after this, it's very yellow, light yellow in the color. Hay, because we don't add color to the whiskeys. We think that's
For the
cheating.
rye whiskey, you only use new American white oak barrels.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Do that.
And do you
3.5 years old?
3.5? Okay.
Yes.
And do you burn them on your own, or did you get the barrels burnt?
We get them burned. The first casks we got was again American white oak, but made in Spain. They burned them in Spain and made them in Spain and sent them up. Now we get them directly from the US, a place called Kelvin Cooperage. They do for many distilleries in the US, and so we're very specific, much more specific now today on how they treat the casks and what quality of casks you get to Stauning whiskey than we were in the beginning. When you're new, you know nothing. No, you really know nothing, and you just
can Google that. Why didn't you Google
You
it?
can Google that. Yeah. The perfect cask.
Perfect cask.
How to get the perfect cask for my Danish whiskey distillery?
I think at the moment we have 4 very special casks. Maybe Stefan showed you when you were there. Misonara oak.
Yeah,
and,
you showed me.
Misonara oak is extremely expensive. we paid 4,500 euro per cask, empty cask.
Okay.
You get a license and a number for the cask and the stamp and a signature from the cooperage in Japan and all that. And it's the most terrible casks in the world because they are leaking so much. We lose so much alcohol from these casks, and they're known for that. But the flavor is really, really interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Oh.
Yeah.
That looks great.
I'm prepared.
And the reason why they're sitting in there, that's this is the tanks when we bottle whiskey, and when we have on the tanks on the left is for the whiskey in the tanks you saw right in front of you is the new make that goes into those tanks.
Okay.
And the reason why
when you're in this room and go to the silver door, you get in this room.
Yeah, you get into that room. Yeah, the reason why these 4 casks are in that room is because they were sitting in the warehouse, but due to temperature changes from going from summer now to winter, they were starting really to leak a lot. So a lot of whiskey just ran on the floor from them because of the wood is so special. It doesn't move. It doesn't adapt to those temperature changes. So we had to bring them indoor to kind of keep an even temperature. They stop leaking like after 4 hours, 5 hours. They stop leaking just going in there.
What's about the angel share?
So a normal angel share is 2 to 3% per year.
Okay.
So it's very similar to Scotland. We lose about 20 liters on 3 years in a cask, so 200 liters to about 180 liters.
That's okay.
These Misonara casks, they are 225 liters per cask, and the one with the least whiskey has now 180 liters, and they are only 2.5 years old. So they've lost 45 liters during 3 years. Okay. That is not good.
Okay.
That's expensive.
Yeah.
So I made this picture to show that thing, because this is filled on the 5th of November 2020, the birthday of my son.
Okay.
And so I need a bottle of that.
You need a bottle.
And here you can see what happens, because the cask was full when you filled it completely.
Yes.
And I was there last week, so it's nearly 1 year. And in 1 year, you lost that much. So it's a lot.
But I also have to say to this cask is sitting inside in the distillery shop.
Okay.
And the temperature in there is always over 20 degrees. So that's like putting it in the Caribbean place.
With Caribbean style
like
whiskey.
Yes, yeah.
In India.
So it loses much more alcohol per year
Okay.
being inside in the warm. Yeah.
So I should have filled a bottle then when I was there. It's empty next week.
We'll have to remember. So.
Okay.
So yeah, I think a different dram, but a really, my style, a good dram. Even though it's 3.5 years old.
So when we started today, we just were kidding about Danish or German whiskey, and we did a lot of whiskey tastings in the last years, and we did a really lot of online tasting in the last 20 months. And what we do is world whiskey tasting. So it's our most sold online, or it was our most sold online tasting topic. Okay. So the people are interested in world whiskey. And we showed them 6 whiskeys in a blind tasting from 6 countries. So, and
interesting.
I would say nearly every third or fourth tasting, and we did, I don't know, 100 of online tastings for companies, for private persons, and public online tastings. And I would think we had a Stauning whiskey in nearly 25% of the tastings. And it was really blind tastings, and they had to taste, they had to rate the whiskey, and then we showed them what they were drinking. And
they're really shocked.
Always gets the best rates.
Okay, it does.
So really,
fantastic.
So it's not because I want to be very kind to you now, but we have the best ratings and the world tastings, and sometimes we put the smoke in our peated tasting where they expect only Scottish whiskey from Islay, and it get very high ratings too. So they like the smoke and they like the rye in the world tastings because I think they like the sweetness, and they always think it's a lot of it's a 10 years old whiskey.
Yes, yeah. Well, thank you. I'm really happy to hear that. Of course, that people likes it. It's the best feedback you can get when customers give you good feedback on your products. Maybe I like it, but it doesn't help a lot if people out in the world doesn't like it.
Yeah, that's true. But it's that helps a lot to sell the whiskey for us as a shop owner, because the people have to try. So every bottle we have here on the shelves are open. So you can try the whiskey here. We have always every bottle of Stauning open in our shop. So if you come to Bremen or Oldenburg in our shop, you can taste Stauning for free. You don't have to book a tasting or a tour. So, but the people are crazy. They always want to do a tasting.
Of course.
So that's what when we do tastings here at our place, we have maybe 20 people here, and everyone is paying 69 euros for the tasting. So now I say, you are so crazy, you can come here every time in the day and drink all the whiskey for free, and now you pay 69 euros. What's wrong?
That seems strange. Yes, very strange. I need to go there. I absolutely need to go there and taste some whiskey. I see you have some good stuff up there.
Oh yes,
yeah, a little bit. So normally we sell nothing from Diageo. So we say no Konzern products. And when I heard that Diageo invested in Stauning, I said, oh no, they're so good. And I like them. Why? What did they do? They made a deal with the devil.
Genau.
And I would actually say it's so much fun, because that was also top of our mind. Are we doing a deal with the devil? All that stuff. Big companies, Diageo, all that. But to my surprise, and I would really say to my surprise, when we've been on a study trip to Scotland together with one of the key persons in Diageo, Douglas Murray, in charge of many tins and the distilleries. He's a really, really good guy, and one of the best also in Scotland, from other distillery managers and people. He took us around Scotland for 5 days. We met a lot of amazing people, and it turned out that every distillery we came to, we met passionate people, normal people like ourselves that had their daily profession, making the best whiskey possible. So all these thoughts about Diageo being the big bad boy and all that stuff were just put into the ground immediately. And every time we get people from Diageo coming to us, they are it's fantastic persons. Scottish people are often it's Scottish people. They are fantastic people. They're fun. They have a good humor. I think it's Germans, Danish, Scots have a very similar humor, which we like a lot. And they're not just thinking about money. Everybody's thinking about money, of course. If you're a small distillery, big distillery, you need to earn to your life. But they have a lot of knowledge, and that's what we bought into with this knowledge. So we wanted knowledge. If we have a problem in our wash bags, we could go to a laboratory in Denmark, and they wouldn't know shit about what we're doing because whiskey is not big in Denmark. But we can go to Scotland now, and we have a direct access into laboratories. So people that work with this for the last 50 years, they go directly to Stauning. They help us out if we have a problem we haven't seen before. So that's what we bought into, not just money, but knowledge. And there they are good.
Yeah, I think for a Danish distillery, it's a very, very great deal to get access to the world market, to get buyers for what you love. So you can continue what you love, and you can live maybe from that what you are doing there. So I like that, but I don't like Diageo now. I still don't like them because they do so uniform whiskey over the years. So it's everything that's nearer and nearer and nearer, and that's all the big players. What all the big players do. So we have a very good beer brand here in Bremen, Beck's. Yeah. So if you taste it now and you tasted it 20 years ago, it's completely different. So because
it was now we have 20 years ago, right?
Yeah. So
I know. Yeah. Good.
But maybe what's good is what is good is they are still here. So maybe that's what we can say to AB InBev.
Exactly. A huge company, by the way. Yeah, exactly. And I think doing this with Diageo or getting the money from Diageo made us it made this dream possible of having so many small stills, direct heated. The way we mash the floor malting, we wouldn't be able to do that on our own with the money, because when we'd ask banks for loans in the beginning, they were just like, "Bang! Are you crazy? Whiskey in Denmark? No, no loan, no money. Forget all about it. You just don't get money like that from Danish bank or investors."
Perfect idea. Go out.
yeah, go out. Exactly. It was like actually the first bank said, "Why don't you start a bakery instead?"
Bakery. We have another opportunity for us. May I introduce you to the devil?
Yes.
Go talk to him.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the devil, the hell smells like smoke.
Smoke. Yes.
So we have our final. So one of my favorite whiskeys from your distillery, the Smoke, but I like peated whiskey. It's not heavily peated. It's
no. We are actually working on making more heavily peated versions of whiskeys. With the new distillery, this is a lot of this is whiskey from the old distillery. So with the new kiln, the new possibilities, we can really do tests and trials and make a lot of fun stuff in the new kilns. So again, do heavily peated versions. Use, again, as I said, the seaweed, burn some casks, perhaps. You don't want, weird stuff. The sky's the limit with the new system we have. So that will be fun to create with different kinds of peats also. Coastal type of peat like Islay, local peat that are more like Highland style peat. So flexibility. So the reason why we have floor maltings, our own kiln, is flexibility. When you look at it as from an investing perspective, it's a bad idea to do your own floor malting. It's a really, really bad idea. It's expensive, takes a long time. Not good. It's not easy to control doing floor malting compared to the other types of malting you do out there. So it's simply just to have flexibility in our production. Trial, test, do fun. We make malt for breweries also now in Stauning Whiskey. We've made some really, really crazy stuff for Carlsberg. The first malt they ever used for beer, 175 years ago. They found they could extract yeast from that beer in the cellar. They found a beer they could extract the yeast. That type of barley you don't use anymore. It's called Old Danish, that type of barley. It's very, very old. But up in Svalbard in Norway, there's a freezer up there that has the seed from the plants over the whole of Europe. They had 7 seeds up there of this Old Danish. So they got this, they put it in the ground in Denmark, it grew up, they cut the 7 plants, they sent the seeds to New Zealand, grew them again, Denmark, New Zealand, Denmark, New Zealand, Denmark, New Zealand, until they had 1 ton of grain. Then they asked us to do a floor malting of that 1 ton of grain because they wanted to create this beer from the old days. But in the old days, you did floor malting. You don't do malting. You didn't do malting like we do it today. So we were the only place they could contact to do the floor malting. And I remember one of the board members, Finn, he's in charge of their malt. He said to me, "We have this 1 ton. Please do not fuck this up." It took like 7 years to grow. We didn't fuck it up. So flexibility, we can do fun stuff and weird stuff. The smoke, the name smoke is actually not because it's smoky, which you will see. It's because it's smoke from heather and smoke from peat. So instead, we can't name it peat. The old version we had was named peat. Can't call it heather. So smoke, the combination of peat and heather. In this we have
heat. It's a combination of heather and peat is heat.
Heat. That's the next bottle will be named heat.
Heat. Yeah.
Heat. And the cask we use for this is ex-bourbon casks. There's a few virgin casks in here, and the ex-bourbon cask. After a period of time, we put that in rum casks and Madeira casks. So we finish some of the ex-bourbon casks off in virgin and Madeira and rum, which creates some more similar flavors to, I guess, Scotch, some of these sherry versions. But it's very simple. It's not a full sherry whiskey, this one, or a port or style like that. It's very simple, I would say. The ppm, we don't have the number, but I would guess it's like 10, 12, something
like Highland Park, I think.
Yes, very low, very low in the ppm. But the interesting part is often you measure the ppm in the grain before you distill, and when you smell this, it's not very peated, but when you taste it, you get more smoke. When you add water to it, you get even more smoke. And I've heard many say that some of our whiskeys, taste more smoky, even though it has a lower ppm than other smoky whiskies. So again, the distillation process is very important in extracting, notes from the wash into the final liquid.
So I always think the ppm they rate it before they distill, not after maturing the whiskey.
Yeah.
So let's
Octomore.
Let's hear the new Octomore. Yeah.
200.
200 what? It's 260 or something crazy. Yes.
And
so it's the world's most peated whiskey. So he has the most peated malt, but it's not the peated whiskey.
And it tastes
between that. So.
Yeah, it tastes like 30, 40.
Yes.
Not 200.
It does. No, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So that we can do a lot of different kinds of smoke, and we will also do that in the future. Experiment that. I like smoky things. I prefer more smoke than this personally. Again, I also like cask strength. It says a bit about my palate.
Our two.
We 2 persons. Finally, I didn't say before, but my role in Stauning Whiskey is I'm head of sales, marketing, and product development. So I think I have the best work in the world, to be completely honest. I travel around the world, go to bars, restaurants, retailers, and have a fun time and taste a lot of whiskeys. And then I go back to my office and I sit and drink whiskey all day long, tasting different casks, styles.
This point is good. I have a question.
Yes.
Does your job make you sexy?
No, not at all. On the contrary, no, I smell a lot of whiskey. That's not good.
Yeah, he's always smelling from whiskey. Oh, that's the guy. It's an alcoholic.
It sounds very okay. It sounds very cool for me.
Yeah. Maybe sexy for other men. I don't know. Meatheads. No. And I think the bad part is, of course, I need to spit out when I taste my whiskey in the office. I have to drive home. So. But
so in Denmark, you have always to drive, I think.
Yeah.
It was my first visit to Denmark. We went there for 5 days, and it was 5 days of rain. So it was awesome. When we went back, the sun came out. We crossed the German border. I get my sunglasses out and said, "Hey, welcome home." It was great.
It's funny because I get the same experience when I'm in Germany or France and I go back to Denmark. Yes. It starts to rain when I cross the border. It's just like, what?
Okay.
No. So
I've read on Wikipedia, Denmark is a land with less rain than every other Northern European country, even if it's between the oceans.
Can't be. Must be a mistake.
Wikipedia is lying.
Wikipedia is lying. Yeah. No.
Let's drink a whiskey.
So again, not so smoky on the nose. Cheers, yeah. And but when you then taste it, you get a bit more smoke.
I have some herbal notes on the nose, and so I wanted to describe it like what's salbei in English? I have to Google that. Salbei.
Salbei.
But
I don't know.
Also get
sage.
Sage. Yes.
Okay.
Sage.
Okay.
A little bit of sage in my nose.
And you also get that immediately when you taste it. The first you get is also the herbal notes in the alcohol. So then it disappears and it gets some of the more kind of typical whiskey character styles in a whiskey. Again, again some of that tobacco or ashtray due to the Highland style peat. You have the citrus.
Yeah, some orange peel. So the problem is we tell that every tasting we do is when you like really peated whiskey and you have a whiskey that is slightly peated, it's nearly not possible to taste the peat.
No, exactly. Yeah, it's gone. Yeah,
it's gone.
We have to make a break.
Yeah, and drink some coffee or some water, and eat some bread, and exactly. Yeah. There's also a kind of a nutty character to this.
But really not that dry than the others.
Sorry?
Not that dry.
No, not that dry.
Yeah, that's
so not so spicy, but it is different kind of spice. It's not peppery, this stuff.
But I love it.
Sage. Thank you.
But this is only barley and no rye.
100% floor malted barley.
Okay.
So this is, I would say, this is kind of you can't get more basic than this if you look back in time. So if you go 200 years back in time, floor malting, 100% barley, open fire distilled. It's almost like you can imagine that Scotch home distiller sitting in his house making his first whiskey. Now, today we're not tasting the chaos, but actually I heard from one of the English whiskey writers, Neil Ridley. He was head of World Whiskies Awards some years ago. He said actually the chaos reminded him a lot of old Scotch whiskies in style, probably due to, again, the direct heated stills. And it was very, grainy in the character. Yeah. You have a lot of. You also have that in our whiskies. You can taste the rye and the barley, the grain, some farming. You can also get here.
Okay, so I think it's a little bit different to the others. Sure, it's no rye inside, but I like it very much. But it tastes like the most Scotch whiskey you produce in Denmark.
Yes, yeah.
Probably
Maybe
when
good.
This was your idol. So this is a 1977 Artback.
Oh, this is not a 9. I think.
But do we have to wait a little bit?
Yeah. No, actually, the first versions we did was 100% peat and ex-bourbon casks. So that was the first version. Were more similar to the Artback style or the Scotch Islay style whiskies. But we don't have iodine, kind of seaweed, boat, tar, stuff like that, as you have on the Islay whiskies. We don't have that in our whiskies.
And it's every time Danish barley?
It's 100% Danish, what we have. It's within 16-20 kilometers of the distillery. It's we have 2 farmers, and they're both old school friends. It's been they have been in school with Lasse and Jesper and Martin, the 3 brothers that came from Stauning. So we all know each other. We try to find local people that works in the distillery always. We have local craftsmen. When we order, things, we would prefer to buy local rather than buy it in China or Poland or places like that. So
I think that's great.
It's because we are in the west coast of Denmark, and the west coast is kind of the outskirts of Denmark. It's kind of the poor area of Denmark, and you need to help people. We need to help each other at the west coast. We can't just do like in Copenhagen, or we need to help each other to lift the area. So that's why we try to do it local.
So, but what you have is a lot of space for growing your barley or your rye. So because that is when I have to describe Denmark, I say this is Denmark.
This is flat.
So this is the West Coast.
That's a great picture. That's a great picture. That one. Yes,
it's like Lower Saxony in Germany.
So in Germany, they are talking about the speed limits for the cars. Don't do it, please. So I always fell asleep when we went anywhere there. So it's 60 and 80 when you can drive 200. So why?
Yes.
Totally crazy.
I have to admit, I love to go to Germany and drive fast. I heads down. I really do.
But in Denmark, I was completely driving like we had to. So we always the Danish cars.
It passed you. Yes.
Passed us. Stupid Germans.
Stupid German.
We hate you.
I think the West Coast is a bit atypical because I'm from the northern part of Denmark originally. And I really had to find out how to drive at the West Coast because even though we don't drive as fast in the highways as in Germany, if it says 80, the sign for the speed limit, in the West Coast, people will go 100, in these straight roads.
Yeah.
And I really have a hard time getting used to that. It's illegal. I'm from the north part of Denmark. We drive, but
you're breaking
what
the
sign
law.
says.
Breaking the law.
It sounds very German what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Totally.
But I've learned now. Trust me.
Okay. So I have one story. We have one story to tell to the whiskey or about the whiskey because. What Henning told me was that you get the peat from Denmark too. It's not a Scottish peat. You get it from a museum, or you got it from a museum in the first years.
Yes.
So that sounds really crazy.
It was actually the story about that was that when we decided to make whiskey, we wanted to make the Artback 77. And we found out what makes the smoke in a whiskey. Peat make the smoke in a whiskey, and we are most of us are young people. We didn't know what peat was, so we had to Google peat, and we found out that in between where I live and the distillery, there's a place called Klosterlund Museum, and this is actually the first place in Denmark where you commercially started to dig up peat for using it for stoves, for fire, for making heat. And there's actually some of these kind of mummified people that you often find in these lakes, where some of the most famous of these dead people have been dead for several hundred years, offered for the gods or something like that and dumped into the lake. You found them in these lakes where we get our peat. And we Google it, and I found this place. I called a place up north in Denmark where I'm from. They said to me, "Well, we can't help you because we don't make peat. We make spawnum for plants in your garden." But this museum, tried to call the head of the museum and ask him, and he got extremely happy when I called him up. Very, very happy, because it's a museum. They only have old stuff. When I came and I got a big bag of peat with me back home, they could actually start making peat for modern time, for new things. That's very different for a museum, right? So they have our whiskey in the museum now. Go see it, what it's used for. And they gave it for free in the beginning. And I took it back, and we started smoking in the garden. The 9 of us standing.
Maybe it's the first highlight in that museum.
It's a big thing. So it's old. It's extremely old peat. We have some of the experts, again from Scotland, coming to Denmark, says this is extremely old stuff. You hardly find that old peat, and when it's that old, it doesn't make a very strong peat flavor or smell, because it's more like thin, easygoing smoke. So if you want a more dense, hard kind of smoke, you would go for a younger peat.
Yeah,
you can find those peat bogs in different areas in Denmark. The biggest problem is that often they are protected, these peat areas. You can't dig it up, so you need a permission to do it. So it's extremely difficult just to find some peat, dig it up, and then use it for whiskey. So I think we have 3 places now where we get our peat. Soon a 4th place where we'll get a more, as I said, the Islay style peat, more iodine, seawater, seaweed, stuff like that. It's going to be fun to see how that can affect the style of our whiskies.
Yeah, sounds interesting.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so I think you could tell maybe stories for even 1 or 2 hours more, but we have to finish now because I have to go home now. I'm a very old man and I'm a little bit tired. And I think you both, you are at home. So we have to say to our audience, thank you for watching. Also danke zu Hause, dass ihr zugeschaut habt. Alex, I have to do some commercial stuff at the end now. So unser nächsten Livestream gibt's am 25. November. Whisky zum Verschenken. Daniel und ich haben uns Gedanken gemacht und machen uns weiterhin Gedanken. Und es wird, bin mir nicht sicher, ob davor oder danach nochmal ein kleines Special geben von uns, nämlich hier vom Bottle Market. Daniel und ich gehen zum Bottle Market, haben einen Kameramann im Schlepptau und werden da von Stand zu Stand laufen und doofe Fragen stellen oder schlaue Fragen stellen. Wir werden Whisky probieren.
Wird lustig, ja.
Auf jeden Fall werden wir einen netten Abend haben oder Nachmittag haben, bis in den Abend rein, Daniel. Das wird, glaube ich, ganz cool. Und bis dahin, wenn ihr nicht warten könnt, geht auf unsere Homepage, geht auf heimathafen.com, holt euch Infos zu unseren Online-Tastings, zu unseren Vor-Ort-Tastings. Die machen wir jetzt wieder in Oldenburg. Nächste Woche entscheidet sich, wann wir in Bremen wieder Tastings machen werden. Und ich freue mich, euch alle auch wieder begrüßen zu dürfen. Wenn ihr ganz schlau seid, bucht ihr einfach keine Tastings, sondern kommt so in den Laden und probiert einfach alles, was offen ist. Auch ganz cool. So, I think that's it. So you can buy all the products that we try today in a online shop or in our shops in Bremen or Oldenburg. We will meet at the ferry. So Stefan will go to Germany. Is that true? Yeah.
Yes.
So we go to the bottle market. Visit Stefan from Stauning. He's the oldest employee they have, and he's a really fantastic guy. I liked talking to him. And I can show a picture for the others, and they can see who to meet. Just a second, it's the same problem.
So everyone in Bremen knows his name.
Yes.
Hey, Stefan! Oh.
Hello.
So this is Stefan here. So very nice guy, German-speaking guy. So he's from Germany. I was asking him, what are you doing here in Denmark? And he said, yeah, the problem had blonde hair and blue eyes. And but he's away now, and I'm still here.
Yeah.
Very good story. A very funny guy, a very, very competent in what he's doing. He's filling the cask with a new make, and he's buying the cask in with you together.
Yes,
so
he's the cask manager. Yes,
he's a cask manager. Okay,
yeah.
The head of cask managing.
Head of cask. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we need more titles.
Yeah.
So after my apprenticeship, I worked for a big company, and they got a new job in the company. It was called Standard Implementation Manager. So, but it was gastronomy. So we had some pubs and big pubs, and her job was to look in the different cities if they put the right stuff in the right glasses. So there was standard implementation. Do they use the right glasses for drinks? So,
nice title.
Great job.
Yeah, nice title. Yes.
Yeah. So. Okay, so thank you very much, Alex, for spending the time with us, and for this good whiskey. We don't hope, we know there will come a lot of good stuff more, and so we look forward to special editions from Kirsch now. 6 editions. Okay, they did not tell me before. I will call them tomorrow and say, what about the 6 bottles? I need them. And
maybe I said too much, but they're listening now, so we'll have to whisper.
No. It was not Christoph, it was Mike. So, da zu Hause, habt einen schönen Abend noch. Wir gehen jetzt raus. Daniel, hast du noch letzte Worte?
Nee. Vielen Dank.
Und Alex, do you have last words for your last words for Germany today?
I'd just like to say thank you very much for participating, and please, of course, visit Sascha's shop and then come to Stauning afterwards.
Go to Stauning. It's very, very impressive. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.